All right, welcome back to the My Pro Golfer channel. Jeremy Franks coming to you here from the short game area at Summerfield Crossings Golf Club. Tonight we're going to continue our series on distance shots that you can hit for a high handicap player or a low handicap player, with the focus on how is it best for those two levels of player to get it up on this green and hit solid shots. That's what tonight's episode is going to be on. Before you get to the next piece of this video, like, subscribe. We want you to know as much as you can and go back and watch the old series. Each one's going to build on the other one. So check those out before we get started. Hey, thanks for watching today's episode. Here at My Pro Golfer, you know we like to keep things simple. And today, I've got a special gift for you to help you never miss a 5-foot putt again. Click the link below and download today. All right, so last week you'll remember we finished up with a 30-yard shot. Tonight we're doing the 30 to 40-yard shot. And the reason I'm showing you this instead of going back and doing the same video is that we got a little bit of a different scenario here than we had before. We've got a lot more rough in front of us, and so we hit the 7-iron last time because we could kind of bump it through the already mowed grass and that ball would roll out. Well, we don't have that scenario right now. We've got a lot of pretty thick rough in front of us. So what we want to capitalize on as a high handicap player is, what is the minimal amount of movement that I can do to get this club in the grass, get the ball up and over this rough and still running out? And so what we're going to do is we're going to try it with a 9-iron first to see how this comes out. And we're going to get the same setup, a little bit of toe down, feet close together. And for which this shot, we're not quite sure how far, but we're going to start with just our basic chip, about pocket height to pocket height, and see if it'll come out and roll out for us with a 9-iron. So enough loft, I believe, for my swing to get it up and over this rough and rolling out to that front pin. That front pin for us is 30 yards. So we want to really pay attention to how far we're going with our club back and through with a 9-iron. So let's go through it. We get set up, feet close together. This is still just a basic chip. We're not going to do anything too extravagant here, too extreme. We're going to keep that toe down and we're just going to brush. All right, got it up and over and it's rolling out. I don't know if you can see that from there. It went about 5 or 6 feet too far. And they hit it just about exactly like I'd want to. So what I might try to do for you high handicappers is take a pitching wedge. Now it brings in some difficulty. All right, once we get a pitching wedge on that shot, we're gonna try this real quick. We'll get a decent lie, and we're gonna get that toe up again. Try to make the exact same stroke. It's nice and back and through. We're just brushing through the grass. We gotta get it up and over that hump and let it roll out. The minimal swing we can do, the better. Now that kind of chunked a little bit, hit a little bit of that early spot, and we didn't get quite far enough as I'd like to do, that we want to do with sort of your 9-iron. And so right now we're going to try to stick with that 9-iron philosophy. I'll give the pitching wedge one more shot at it. Toe down, hands in front, brushing like a putt. We just got that barely on the green, and we're rolling it just a little bit short with that same shot. So 9-iron might be the best play. That's where I'd want you guys to start as high handicappers. Remember, when we throw a sand wedge halfway, in an ideal world, it's going to roll out halfway. So we've got about 90% of this shot, 30% of it we got to carry early. All we need is a pitching wedge or 9-iron to get that up and on the grass rolling. And so 9-iron or pitching wedge will work well here for the way I chip that shot. And hopefully you'll have the same effect for you high handicappers as that same technique. All right, let's move into the scratch player phenomenon and how we're going to hit this shot for the lower handicap levels. So if a scratch player, I still always want to encourage you guys to keep the ball low as much as possible and let it roll out as much as possible as you can. So what I've done is I've selected a 56 degree. I don't want maximum loft here because I don't have to go up and over anything. I just have to make a solid strike, and the least amount of stroke that I can create to get that ball to roll the distance I want is exactly what I'm looking for. So 56 degree, center slightly back of stance, toe down. we're going to obviously have to make a bigger stroke than we did with the pitching wedge and the 9-iron, but we're going to try to make that same philosophy because the loft adds a level of difficulty. Remember, when we're in our series, most high handicappers add a lot of wrist, so loft is not our friend. We want to get the least amount of loft to get the ball up and out of the grass and rolling forward. So let's go for a scratch player. Scratch players are going to keep the elbows more together, the hands more together, the shoulders and arms are going to work together like that. And let's just test this theory here. Toe down, body up, arms relaxed, brushing the turf. All right, we got it about halfway out. You can see that ball roll. And for a scratch level player, that's about just fine. If you could look on the face, I struck it just a little bit low on the face, but I'm definitely up in that second or third groove of grass. So we know that that club dug out, popped that ball up, and was probably the exact perfect club for a scratch player to get up and down from a very difficult lie for any level of golfer to be successful at scoring in that scratch area. All right, everyone, so I was very pleased with that scratch performance. And if you're a high handicapper, feel free to practice these things. All I'm saying is that these are difficult shots. The higher the loft, the more difficulty the chip is and the more precise you have to be really technically sound to hit some of these shots. We're gonna move on to that 40-yard shot, and funny enough, even though the shot is longer, it's an actual easier shot in this scenario, and that is because we are gonna have to put a little bit more speed on the shot, and so more distance in the stroke, but we got more area to get the ball up and on the green. So we can utilize that 8-iron that we chipped last week and just give a little bit more back and through for the high handicapper and still get it to work for this shot. And so what I mean by that is the length of the stroke, and I've got a 9-iron here, I'm gonna grab my 8-iron. The length of the stroke determines how far the speed of the ball is gonna travel through impact to get the ball to roll out. So an 8-iron typically on a basic chip, you land it 20, 30 yards, it's gonna roll another 50, 60 yards. Now you can talk about feet and you can talk about yardage, but it's basically a percentage. So 10 to 20%, this will go in the air and the rest will roll out. So what I mean by that is we got a decent lie in the rough. The lie does matter, so if the lie is decent, you can get an 8-iron. 7-iron in this kind of rough, so it gets a little bit tricky because you got to be real precise with the strike. But for your high handicappers, let's go back to 8-iron. We're gonna go toe down, brush through about the same as we did for the 9-iron, and we've got more space to go. So this should get up and out over that fringe and roll out to that 40-yard shot. Let's just take a look at it. So feet together, leaning the shaft slightly forward, toe down. We're gonna make that same brush, utilizing just the height of that 8-iron to get the ball to roll out. Hopefully you can see that. We got about 8 feet. I went through a little crater on this green, which was a negative, but I did strike it pretty solidly. So the 8-iron got down in there. And as you can see from the face, we got quite a bit of grass. So we used the loft of the club to get that ball up in the air, and that was fantastic. So now as a scratch player, moving on into that zone, I got a lot of options available to me. Now, one thing that makes me a little nervous is the optimal lie and line on this is where that crater is on that left side. So I might, as a scratch player, say, well, I want to take that variance completely out of play. And what I would do to do that is I'd take my 60-degree wedge, my highest lofted club. Now the only negative is I've got to add distance to my stroke. So I'm going to try to throw it all the way over that crater, land it high and soft, and let it roll out. We're not going to get into grain and things like that could affect the landing spot. We'll talk about that in a different episode. We'd have to put way too much information to learn all the shots in golf today. These are just basic for you. So we're going to try to send this ball almost 90% of the way there because it's going to have some spin coming out of this rough. Stop hard and roll out just a little bit. So the swing is going to be more about just above hip to just through hip to hit that shot high and 40 yards for that shot. That's a lot more movement than I want most high handicappers to play. So toe down, body on top of the ball. Let's make our stroke. So look at that, very high. It checked a little It's rolling out more than I want. It's a little bit to do with the down grain and the fact that if you look at my wedge here, we got a little bit more towards the low part of the groove. So it came out a little hotter than optimal and it didn't spin quite as much. But we're on it and we're doing pretty good. Let me try that again for you. We're just going to try to get it just over that. I'm going to do the same motion. I'm going to aim a little bit left on this one. Try to get that scratch player down, down, up, down. Carried the edge. Got a little bit difference in check. Landed a little harder than I wanted, but we're about 6 feet, just slightly right of the flag. And that's pretty good for a scratch player from 40 yards. I need to work on that shot personally if I ever want to make it on the PGA Tour or Senior Tour or any tour. That's not good enough for a plus handicap. Hey, just want to remind you to not forget on getting your free gift below on how to never miss a 5-foot putt. All right, so just to recap, we had a 30-yard shot and a 40-yard shot to be played for a high handicapper and a low handicapper, a scratch player. And we played around with 4 different clubs here in order to hit that shot. The reason being, and the reason why we had to have so many different club options, is we had to determine this first section. So this first section is all this grass. You can't just chip a rolling shot through here with any kind of consistency because the length of the grass will grab some, bounce some others. So we had to try to get it out of the grass and up onto the surface. That's why we wouldn't use a putter here, even though putter is always the best option if it can work correctly for the surface. We can't putt through this stuff. It's really hard to chip a 7-iron or a 6-iron through here because it's going to grab so much. So we use 9-iron for the average player to get that ball up and out and rolling. 8-iron made it a little bit more difficult because we didn't quite have enough loft to dig it out. So I'm recommending 9-iron if you're going to get the ball up and over this section of turf, but still get it on the green rolling out. It's perfect. And then for your scratch player, we use that 56 degree. Really grabbed in the grass, got up and out high, and rolled out to just a few feet. And I'm going to make par there, so I'm excited about that situation. Similar circumstances for that 40-yard shot. We dialed in the right club for us, and we figured that out. How are you going to learn how to do that on your own? Simple. Just take a few balls, a few clubs, hit a few simple shots, try to get the feel for what looks and feels the best, focusing on contact, making sure that you get a little bit of that grass on your club face so that we can get the most optimal opportunity with the least amount of effort for you to make an up and down no matter what handicap level you are. Guys, like, subscribe, and we'll see you next Thursday at 6 o'clock.